Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another Learning Sound and Synthesis Spotlight interview. I'm here today with Leslie, and we're going to be talking all about how Leslie has created a really personalized creative practice combining modular synths, violin, multimedia art. I think there's things that I don't even know about. I'm excited to hear about them from you, Leslie. But really just about how you've been kind of unlocking this new creative chapter for yourself. I think that's sort of what we're going to be getting into. So welcome to everyone who's joining live. It's good to have you here. Go ahead and say hello if you're here live. If you're watching the replay, you can comment replay. And let's just jump in. Do you mind starting us off with a little introduction to who you are and maybe what you most like to do musically? That's a
Yeah,
big question,
sure.
I know.
Yeah, that's okay. How much time do you have?
Yeah.
So my training is as a classical violinist, and but before that, I was an optometrist, a practicing optometrist for a couple years, and then I had a job in orchestra. I went back to school for performance, and then I started making interdisciplinary performances that I would say combine theater, concert music, new media, and that's been maybe the last 10 years. And the pandemic really pushed that interdisciplinary in relation to new media a little bit further. And so currently I have this show that is theater sort of storytelling adjacent concert music of like electroacoustic noise experimental improv and new media. So I was really interested in hybrid performance during the pandemic and how to make the experience online with your laptop feel as good or considered as if you were in the room. So I was noticing a
Interesting.
lot of like videos of the performance in the room as the hybrid show, but it always felt like, oh, the real show was in the room. So I really wanted to know how to make something that if you were an audience member who couldn't go to the venue for whatever reason, you still had a full experience. So it ended up being like making two full shows, two totally different forms of the same show. So I've been working on that for the last 5 years. And the online show involved working with a software engineer, creative technologist to build this custom web app that ended up going towards, and I think this is what you're referring to, Sarah, was this web-based synthesis, where I was interested in having people interact from home with each other as anonymous cursors, but wanting something to be more sound first. So
Hmm.
instead of seeing an interaction online where you would visually see something happen, like a little bubble explodes and that's the interaction, but and then there's a sound effect added later. We wanted to lean into creative accessibility for the blind community and make something that was more guided by your own ears. So you would be moving your cursor and there would be sort of synthesis code that would guide the sound and sort of generate the sound depending on where your cursor was, whether you clicked, whether you held, how fast you were moving. And that was a much more like meaningful and full sound experience than just a sound effect that was added on top of something later where I would have to audio describe in addition.
Right.
So
Oh,
yeah,
wow. Cool. That is such a that is a lot.
yeah.
You do a lot. But it's amazing. Something that I just want to highlight for anyone who's watching is just how many things you do and how they all work together to really define you and your practice. It's not like I'm just bringing this up because I know a lot of people sometimes feel like a tension or a tug of war between, well, I like
Mm,
playing guitar and I also like poetry and I also want to do sculpture art, but those can't possibly go together. And so do I have to pick a lane and stay in my lane? And I just think that what you've just shared with us is such a beautiful example of like fusing so many things together and really considering how that experience can work for people.
yeah, I mean, I would say that part of what led me to do synthesis course. So I will say that I, for the last 5 years, have been mostly facilitating, directing all these parts. So I wasn't doing the coding. I made my software engineer walk me through the code of the synthesis because I didn't fully understand what he meant. I have a sound designer who does a lot of surround sound immersive. Like the venue has a 7.1 surround system. And we have an audio technician. So I was really sort of guiding all of those parts as the sort of concept conceiver and performing the violin in the practice that I've been trained in for the most part. But what I found a little frustrating was not being able to communicate or have the vocabulary to talk to my sound designer and the software engineer in a way that sort of tied us all together. So I was coming from this like old school acoustic bow hair and
Mhm.
wood place. My sound designer, is this great producer that makes a lot of electronic music, and the software engineer would make like I think it's called like live code music.
Mhm. Yeah.
So we were all sort of like, oh, yeah, it felt a little crazy making talking to each other about sound, like, and trying to talk about like textures, where I would be imagining very physical feelings and sounds, and the software, Ramsey, our software engineer, would be like, I feel like borderline insane talking about this idea of like textures and sound. Like, I don't really know what you mean. So we had to find a workflow where the sound designer could work with the software engineer,
Interesting.
and yeah, to make that all come together. And then, I also was just interested in expanding my own sound practice. And that also has to do with my own maybe existential relationship with the instrument. So, yeah.
Can we talk do you mind if we talk a little bit
Sure.
about that to whatever level you're
Yeah.
comfortable? Because I also know, people are well aware here in this community. I'm a classically trained trumpet player. I
Yeah.
had, in some ways, a fantastic experience, and in some ways, a very challenging experience going through that. And I think a lot of people can relate to that. It doesn't necessarily mean you were trained classically, but for anyone who had a more, some kind of musical training that just for some reason wasn't super supportive and was maybe very competitive or kind of restrictive. Um, yeah, what was your experience like there? And I think to keep it on target with this conversation, I'm curious how anything, if anything, has been shifting for you as you've been like learning new tools and kind of expanding your horizon into the world of synthesis.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Um, yeah, I had started playing violin when I was 4, and maybe many people can relate to sort of their parents putting them into an instrument and you play it, and some people give it up and some people keep going. And I took a bit of a detour going to science and optometry, and then when I came back to the violin, I was really on a very focused track to get to what I still felt was this like professional violinist box check. It
Mm.
looks like this way. You learn this repertoire, you do these orchestra auditions. I wanted to be a performer. I was not really feeling like, I think teaching is incredible. It's a separate thing in my mind though. It's a separate skill set. So I I feel like going back to the violin as a profession, um I would say I think there's a bit of a confusion around when you say you're an instrumentalist, especially in Western classical training, where people, I think, outside of this world maybe confuse this idea of being a composer and a performer and the craft of learning the instrument versus being the source of the actual composition. Um, and just to say that they are slightly different things when you are like Western trained, Western classically trained. Not that you can't break out of that, but it was definitely a very tight box that I was in and didn't really. It's a different um, skill set, I think, to improvise, to be the source of the sounds. And when I started learning synthesis, it really showed me like, oh, I think I've done a lot of deferring to the conductor or the teacher or to the ensemble of like what sound I should make. And there is kind of a sense of like there is an ideal sound, an ideal version of this piece, And so I continued to sort of strive for that for many years, and then hit something of a block a couple years ago where I just stopped playing the violin, which really shook my sense of identity around being a musician or not. And in starting synthesis, where it was going back to foundations of like a spectrogram, and the one I can't, there's a really early lesson about like identifying an instrument based on the very first, like the milliseconds,
Yes.
the very opening milliseconds.
Yeah.
I just love that fact so much, and it really sort of gave me a way of reapproaching, bow on the string and what is like those initial milliseconds of that sound, and um, and just appreciating frankly the noise of playing the violin. Like I think there's quite a bit of noise in that sound, which might be
Absolutely.
why digital strings always sound so bad, because they're too clean. Actually,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
they
Yeah.
they never sound right ever. But the so it just gave me a different sort of almost more granular, like it wasn't about like the phrase of the concerto line or anything like that. I could just think about like in milliseconds, which is kind of nice to break things down into something
Mm.
really basic. So
I
yeah.
love that so much. So yeah, you're talking about the second module of learning sound and synthesis is all about sound. And I always start there, even though it's a class about synthesis. I
Mhm.
start with sound because it's so important to understand how we hear and the difference between hearing and listening and how sound works on a really low level and how acoustics works and all of that. And another reason why I share it is because I had a really similar experience to you, Leslie, where I was coming from this, classical music background, and it was all about playing notes at the right time and the right pitch with the right large kind of gesture and phrase. And then when I started to learn about synthesis and sound design, and I started learning about all of these little things about noise and inharmonicity and all of these little things, I I started to play trumpet differently. It opened up my trumpet
Mhm.
playing vocabulary. And I was like, wow, I can make all of these filtered air sounds on my trumpet. And I can think about the way a sound ends and not
Yeah.
just the way a sound begins and all of this stuff. So I really wanted to put that in the course. And I'm so glad that you found that helpful. It sounds
Yeah.
like exactly what
I
I was
loved it.
hoping translated to you. So that
Yeah.
is fantastic. I love that. Okay. So where I guess let's maybe fast forward through time a little bit. I'm curious to know. So you started learning synthesis so you could have a little more
Mhm.
agency over that communication and also over
Mhm.
making your own sounds. Where are you at now? Maybe what are some things that you're really like proud of that you've accomplished in the last little while?
Mhm. So I have been working on, like, I think momentum in learning something so different can be really tricky. And I've noticed in the forum a lot of people struggling with time and like doing,
Yeah.
there is a spot it's in like 345, like modules 345, where there's like lots of great information. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm following, I'm understanding. And then I just wasn't, I couldn't do it when it was in front of me without going back to following along the video. So I just started, I'm still in that sort of wanting to keep up a momentum. So I'm still floating around in like module 5. And I'm still, I was thinking about, um, you know, I've said this before, but like I think in the forum or to you about like how slow can I learn this so that I don't feel this pressure to rush through. But I
Mm,
do find myself sort of jumping around to make bigger connections because I do have these projects coming, but I'm not through the course. So I'm in a kind of funny place of like I still want to learn foundations, but there are some specific things or tools that I want to learn in order to have a process,
yeah.
if that makes sense. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. I was asked to do a kind of sound design for someone's project, and I was like, yes, as soon as I learn how to do it. But I'm just gonna go for it. I'll just rise to the
Good.
occasion.
Good, 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 good. I was hoping you were going to say that. You
Yeah,
all know my stance on that.
yeah.
Learning through projects is the best way to learn. But I also love what you said about the way you're going through the course. I mean, yes, there's a lot of conversation in the course community about time. Like, do I have an, am I putting in enough time? Am I behind? And our kind of unofficial motto is like, you're not behind. You're just doing it at your own pace. And I love that you're simultaneously learning the foundations and you're kind of picking and choosing the things that you need to get your creative projects moving. That's the right way to do it. Like you have the course, it's there for you. So take your time. And something that you said in your notes before we jumped on the live stream was that you are also going back, you're letting yourself go back over things as many times as you need. And I think that is just, if you're a student watching this and you're in learning sound and synthesis, or you're just a person watching this in life, allowing yourself to go back over things and not beating yourself up about like, I should know this, why am I having to remind myself of this? Just let yourself absorb it again. Sometimes it takes 5 times, 10 times. That's okay.
Yeah, it's really helpful to go back. And I found it also helpful to handwrite notes.
Totally.
That's like a personal thing I've learned about myself, just as like a processing or integrating.
Yeah, I love that. I'm the same way for sure. Okay, so you've got this sound design project. Is there anything else on the horizon that you want to share with people so that they can maybe follow along if someone might feel so inclined?
Yeah. So that hybrid show that I was mentioning, we're sort of working on doing that. I don't know. I think people are mostly based in the US, is my understanding, with around the course. But anyway,
I
I'm
think
based
we're
in
all,
Toronto.
yeah, I think people are actually all over the world, but
Oh yeah.
good to know that you're, yeah.
But just to say that I'll be doing this hybrid show again, and as I said, it's online and in person, and we built out this whole online experience. So I hope that people, I'll let the forum know when it's on. So
Yes,
we hope to have people
absolutely.
from everywhere.
And can people, if they follow you maybe on social media, would they hear about that and be able
Yeah,
to follow
totally.
along? Okay. So everyone go, I will leave links in the comments, but go and definitely follow Leslie and make sure that you're checking that out. I'm really excited to experience that. I wonder if maybe I'll get to experience it in person, but I kind of want to see both.
Yeah.
The fact that you've built different experiences is really cool. That's something I'd actually never really considered before. So that's
Yeah,
really,
they feel like very different shows, I think. So yeah.
it's fascinating. Awesome. Okay. Well, I want to put a really quick link here up on the screen. Soundandsynthesis.com/waitlist. If you're watching this and you're like, oh, I kind of want to broaden my musical horizons. I want to learn about synthesis. I want to start performing live with electronics, whatever it is that's coming up. This is my synthesis and sound design class. This will bring you to the waitlist page. The next round opens in late February. I only open it twice a year. So this is the best thing to just drop your name onto if you want to make sure that you're notified when it opens up. And if you have questions, if you're like, what is this class? Is it for me? Am I at the right level? Am I whatever it might be? Send me a DM and I'd be happy to talk more. I want to pass back to you though, Leslie, before we finish up. Is there anything else you want to share? One way that I like to phrase this question is maybe if you have anything just for someone who's listening who might be in a place in their musical practice. You can choose whichever place you want to kind of focus on, but any words of wisdom or insight or anything you want to offer?
Just that I think I've been really appreciating getting to know my learning process, and that if things like start to feel tense, it's been helpful for me to just go to a curious place.
Ooh, I love that.
Rather than clock the frustration, but then just go to the curious place.
So I wonder what this might be. I wonder why this is happening. What does that look like for you?
Yeah, it's more of it just seems to lift sort of the tension or frustration around like maybe not understanding something, or like
Yeah.
feeling like, oh, I should know it already. And it seems to help, it helps me get more into the present of the learning and into the
I
flow.
love that.
So yeah, that
Curiosity.
would be what I'd say.
Thank you. It's beautiful. Okay. Thank you so much for everyone who's watching, who tuned in live. I will see you at the next Learning Sound Synthesis Spotlight Series interview. Thank you, Leslie, for coming on and
You're
sharing
welcome.
your thoughts. Please, everyone, go follow Leslie. Check out that upcoming project. I'm so excited to experience it myself. And yeah,
Thank
I'll
you.
see you soon, and I'll talk to you sooner, I'm sure.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye. Take care.